Welcome to the details of those stories. I'll take you straight to Germany because the country's economy has been pushed into recession following a slump in investment, consumption and exports in the first quarter. That's coming according to available data. Economists are actually predicting the situation could get worse in the next quarter. Not so comfortable news. So what's in the detail and what are the statistics pointing to this particular conclusion? Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joins me with more on the German economy this afternoon. Thomas, how do you explain to a teenager, for example, that Germany has entered recession because of coronavirus?
I would explain it by saying that the country will probably enter a period of economic decline or economic problems caused by the coronavirus, and that has to do with different reasons. One of them, for example, that people are not spending enough, so consumer spending, or for example that Germany as an exporting country is also facing problems because supply chains, so that the chains that supply things from beginning to end are not necessarily working as they should, obviously, because all countries are facing problems and disruptions. I would also say that demand from abroad for products made here in Germany has decreased, and that is obviously causing problems for the country, and that explains why Germany is facing a recession. Again, a temporary decline in economic output or in economic change or economic ways of producing, and that those things will obviously impact not only politicians, but they will also impact people directly, and that's why this issue is so important for a country, but not only for Germany, for the other parts of the world as well.
So let's take a look at this is what's happening in the first quarter. But economists, we understand, are also predicting that it is going to get worse in the next quarter. What do they base their conclusions on?
Well, one important aspect in general is to understand that when we talk about economics in general, we're talking about countries that are more and more intertwined because of globalization. That is something that you can't simply deny. And as such, when one country faces economic problems, then that also has repercussions in other parts of the world as well. And in particular, when we're talking about a pandemic that has affected the whole world, then that has direct economic impact on countries, and in particular there again, as I mentioned in my first answer, on exports, on one of the key elements of the economic output in many countries, and in particular in the case of Germany, that is certainly the case. Germany is well known for its exports, and when you have problems in the supply chains, when you have problems in the demand, then that is something that you can't repair or amend from one day to another, and those are reasons probably why many are expecting Germany to face problems not only now but in the upcoming months as well. It's important to stress that Germany's economy minister Gifty said that Germany is preparing for its worst recession in decades. So you can imagine that that's a very important element. Yet at the same time, the economy minister said that they expect to recover also in the next year, in 2021.
In the next year, in 2021, well, here in this country, our own finance minister indicated that it might take us about 3 years after coronavirus to be able to recover. But talking about an intertwined global community, do we have any idea how this can affect, I mean, what's happening, the recession in Germany can affect the so-called development partners, especially in Africa?
Well, development in Africa, and we've discussed it on many occasions here, is particularly important in Germany's foreign policy, and I do imagine that that will continue to be the case, that development in Africa, development projects with Africa will continue to be a priority in German foreign policy and development policy. But it is also the case that when you're facing very big economic problems, and all countries are facing economic problems because of the corona crisis, countries tend to also look inward a lot, and that's something that you can also expect, that maybe in the next few months, in the next few periods, Germany will be more focused on trying to make sure that the economic problems do not affect people here as much, or that the German economy can recover as best as possible. Obviously still considering the important element of economic aid or development aid, but you can expect that Germany will be focusing inward in the next periods. And when I'm talking about inward, I do not necessarily mean only in Germany. I also mean, for example, at an EU level, because Germany's economy is absolutely intertwined with the European Union, and as such That's why Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, has been proposing measures not only here internally, but also at a European Union level, in particular the one that we also discussed with French President Emmanuel Macron. That idea, again, is to strengthen the European Union as a whole, to make sure that countries are not suffering too much, or at least that those problems can be managed accordingly. So that's probably what you're going to see in the next few months. That idea that it's not only about here, German economy as such, but it's also about trying to make sure that at an EU level, things are as good as possible. And then obviously abroad as well, when it comes to Germany's priorities internationally, one of those priorities we've discussed, obviously, is those relationships with African countries.
I mean, this is a very difficult situation, obviously, because we're still living in this pandemic. We're not done yet. But on the back of this, it perhaps makes sense that the country is looking to open up, you know, for example, restaurants, hotels. We understand that that's part of the ease of restrictions that's happening. Tell us a bit more about that.
That's correct, but I would like to add something about Africa as well, and that's the idea, and that's something that the German Chancellor has stressed on various occasions, that this is not something that one country in particular can solve, that this is something that different countries around the world have to work together on, and as such, Germany does understand that working hand in hand with African countries can be helpful, not only for the African countries, but also for Germany and for the EU, and that's why I do believe that despite the fact that Germany could be looking inward a lot, it will also still try and keep and maintain those close ties with African countries. That's one of Germany's priorities as such. Now, when you specifically ask about things that are happening here, how Germany is slowly, gradually opening up, that is absolutely the case, that German states are deciding on an individual basis, based on the situation on the ground, what can open when. So in different parts of Germany, restaurants are opening, or hotels are opening, swimming pools, cinemas, and so on. And this is something that on the one hand allows German states to react fast, for example, if there are problems in one specific area or if there's an outbreak. On the other hand, it can cause a bit of confusion for many if they don't know exactly what is opening when, and when people are specifically asking for a sort of concerted action against coronavirus, something that was very good in the past few weeks when Angela Merkel was leading that in connection with all the different regional leaders.
Very interesting thoughts there, Thomas. Today is Eid around the world. I'm wondering, I'm curious to find out how it's been commemorated in Europe or in Germany as well.
Well, it is being commemorated, obviously, in particular because there's a big population here in Germany and in Europe that commemorates that. But obviously there are social distancing measures that have to also be kept in place. So it is clear that in this particular circumstance, social distancing measures and hygiene measures are also particularly taken into consideration when it comes to this particular commemoration.
Thomas, I'll say a very big thanks to you, and hopefully you're having a piece of the Eid as well. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joined me all the way from Germany, where we're being told that the country's economy is hitting a recession. Very worrying situation there. But let me